Hi, everyone, and welcome to Behind Your Eyes Season 4, Episode number 3. Today, Diana is my guest. So, hi, Diana. Would you like to introduce yourself to everyone?
Yes, hello. Thank you for having me as a guest, Suzanne. My name is Diana. It's actually silent J, so it's pronounced
Ah,
as Diana. Yeah. I look forward to speaking with you today.
thank you.
Thank you.
I always ask the same starting question, and that's a sincere, how are you doing?
How am I doing? Um, I'm actually doing really well, I have to say. Um, I, and I'm going to tell you why.
Mhm,
I turned 50 last year.
mhm,
And when I turned 50 last year, I felt like mm, I was starting a new life. It was the most beautiful experience. It felt like all the all the like learning cycles were
mhm,
closing from my early life.
mhm,
And now, as a 50-year-old, I felt like I was 30 again and
mhm,
I could create a life. I was getting a second chance to create a life, but consciously and
mhm,
intentionally. And I just have this, I hold this really precious energy and awareness inside of me that I just really love so
mhm,
much. It feels wonderful. So,
mhm,
regardless of what's going on in the world and regardless of what's
mhm,
going on around me, I am doing really well. I have alignment and peace and harmony within me, and that
mhm.
feels amazing.
Ah, that sounds brilliant. Yeah, I just turned 40.
Mhm.
It's almost like a new chapter. It's like a new sense of peace and wisdom. And when you apply all that you've learned, and suddenly it starts to settle, and you find a peace within you that you've never had before. Is it a bit like that?
Yeah, it is a lot like
Mhm.
that, actually.
Yeah.
Um, I remember, um, I might be jumping ahead a little bit, but I'm just going to sort of trust what I'm intuiting. So, when I first started to understand some of the quantum principles around, conscious awareness and conscious co-creation of my reality, for a long time I didn't really know how that applies. Like I didn't really understand
Mhm.
what that was day
Mhm.
to day.
Yeah.
Like I understand sort of the concept,
Yeah.
but then it took a while, a few years for it to really embody and
Mhm.
so that I can understand how to do that every day. And
Right.
so with the understanding that I have a choice, with understanding that I'm empowered to create what I intuit or what I want,
Mhm.
essentially, or what I need, um, it that in itself brings such peace.
Mhm.
Lot responsibility,
Mhm.
I am outside of those belief systems where I get to um, live um, the victim archetype, because
Mhm.
I just understand that everything that happens in my world has to do with me.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, so with that understanding comes again a great deal of responsibility,
Mhm.
but it also comes with all of those really beautiful, open heart centered
Mhm.
attributes like kindness and joy and
Mhm.
peace, inner peace, and
Yeah.
harmony and compassion and empathy, and
Yeah.
all of those really beautiful, you know, things that make life worthwhile and give it meaning.
Yeah. And at the start, I think it's sort of easy to see like the bigger picture of what it means, but not really how to apply it to yourself on a day-to-day basis. So how did you figure that out? How did you do that?
How did I do that? Okay. Um, we may need to talk for several several episodes for me to explain that.
I'm down for
But
it.
I'll try and give you a short answer. So, um, first of all, what really helps me to understand is that I love science.
Mhm.
So understanding, having an innate knowledge and acceptance of my spiritual self, and then studying, neuroscience and quantum physics, then helped me find common ground.
Mhm.
One was validating the other, and the other was validating this one. And it
Yeah.
all kind of worked really wonderfully together. And
Mhm.
so I then started to understand this, how the intuitions I was having, the energy, the way energy flows,
Mhm.
uh, how to then intentionally bring it in,
Mhm.
not just sort of tap in and then out there, airy fairy kind of
Mhm.
90s spirituality,
Right.
but present time understanding, right?
Mhm.
Because we've evolved since then and we have a bigger picture of what it means, to have awareness and have
Mhm.
consciousness, right?
Absolutely.
And so understanding energy flow, understanding the unified field,
Mhm.
understanding how when I perceive something, what that actually means is that I'm consciously aware
Mhm.
of the flow within that unified field. And
Mhm.
so then if I'm understanding the flow and I understand that in physics, there's a
Mhm.
positive and a negative charge, and I want to refer to that as feminine and masculine energy, then what happens when I'm channeling something and tapping into, like the field of possibility,
Mhm.
where I get all of my ideas and the field of creation, and I
Mhm.
bring those ideas down, and then the masculine energy steps in order to take action on that energy. And
Mhm.
so it just created, it was like pieces of the puzzle
Mhm.
finding their right place.
Yeah.
So I had all this broad, you know, information. And then slowly I started to put, oh, that's what that is. Oh, that's what that is. And so the pieces started to come in until I could clearly see how, you know, the matrix of manifestation and creation was within me,
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
I was within it, actually.
Mhm.
That's probably more correct.
Mhm.
Um, and and what, you know, um, and then to play.
Mhm.
It's just beauty. It's play. It's joy.
Mhm.
It's joy to see, to feel, to understand, to use our human senses in combination with our, divine senses, if you will.
Mhm. Like the joy in creating your own reality.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. And
Mm,
I always
very
hear
much.
like you have to vibrate at a high level to attract more, but also that joy in that co-creation and the gratitude for it. I think it's like the highest vibration you can be in.
Yes. Now, the trick, I mean, there are many things that need to happen in order, or need to align
Mhm.
in order for all of this to come into the physical plane, right?
Mhm.
Gratitude is one of them. But in order to feel gratitude for anything in your life, gratitude doesn't happen in past tense.
Mhm.
Gratitude happens now. So that means that we have to live in a present moment. And
Mhm.
for a human condition in this world that's, you know, in polarity,
Mhm.
that's really hard to
Mhm.
stay present in the moment when the head always wants to be 10 steps ahead or is somewhere in the past
Yes,
because
exactly.
it carries pain
Mhm.
of some
Yeah.
sort, right?
Yeah, and we're constantly being triggered by either could be media or social media or other things that are attracting our attention that constantly wants us to be, well, not in the present moment. And in other ways, there could be like trauma or other mental problems that could keep us in the past and keep dwelling on our pain. And so that duality that makes it hard to, like you said, stay in the present moment and be mindful of what you are creating right now.
Mm-hmm. And
Mhm.
it's really important to be in the present moment
Mhm.
in order to create anything consciously.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I think, the hardest, the hardest thing to do right
That's
now.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That is the hardest thing. So, this is why, when I said before, it took years to really understand and, like massage the concept for me, for me to make sense of it. But
Yeah.
I mean, the simplest way to say the answer to your question
Mhm.
really is, and it's people hear this all the time, everyone talks about it, being in the present moment, but it's really not exaggerated. The
Mhm.
present tense is the only thing that's available, truly available to us at its highest, fullest potential
Mhm.
right now, not tomorrow, not 6 months down the track, not 10 years ago,
Mhm.
where, I mean, the mind matrix or the um okay, so just so that I don't confuse things. So I'm a counselor, psychologist by profession, right?
Mhm.
But the way I combine, the way I see um, pain,
Mhm.
the pain body, the the archetypes that can play out that we can get stuck in when there's unresolved circumstances in our lives and unresolved learning, which continues to bring
Mhm.
scenarios into play that reflect and mirror that pain.
Mhm.
um, Really has to do with um, I guess in within our mind, within our brain, we have aspects of us that are there
Mhm.
that we create in our psyche that serve to protect us. It has to do with the reptilian brain of survival,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So that anything that's happened to us gets stored. And then, there's like a security guard in our
Mhm.
psyche that will then perceive, you know,
Mhm.
potential threats and things like that in order to protect us.
Yeah.
And so that part of us, that's the security guard
Mhm.
in our psyche, that's always on guard in order to protect our pain selves, whether it's
Mhm.
our inner child or whether it's a failed relationship or, a dysfunctional relationship with our parent or whatever the story might be,
Mhm.
will want to be, if you will, most active. So it's like a chapter in a book where you can't leave the chapter. You keep going back to the same material, the
Mhm.
same material, the same material. And because the brain doesn't have a timeline, the
Mm-hmm.
brain doesn't recognize whether something's happening right now or whether it was 10 years ago,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You could be replaying the same tape over and over and over and over again
Mm-hmm.
if until you resolve that energy or that situation or learn from it in some way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And what that means, unfortunately, is that that keeps you out of the present moment
Mm-hmm.
because that tape in the past is always running. It's
Mm-hmm.
always running in the background. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
keeps you
Runs the
out of
show.
the present moment and in the past, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And you say, like in your work, of course, you emphasize that all of you matters. And could you explain why that is so
Mm-hmm.
important?
Okay, so I'm psychology and natural medicine trained, so I work on the principle that your mind, your emotional body, your physical body, and your spiritual body, meaning your quantum energy field, that unseen, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
is equally important and it's necessary. All of those four parts of you, equal parts, are necessary
Mm-hmm.
for you to be at your fullest potential.
Mm-hmm.
As in, you can go to the gym, right, 24/7, every day, all day, and have the best muscles and the best physique. But if your emotional body is stuck
Mm-hmm.
somewhere as a 5-year-old, then you're going to be a 5-year-old with lots of muscle,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If your mind is running that story, replaying the tape, right?
Yeah.
Because that protection mechanism is really strong,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
That says men are no good or women are no good and all they want is money or every boss is out to get me and I'm not worth anything and na 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 na. Doesn't matter the size of your muscle. It
Mm-hmm.
really doesn't.
No.
And if you're walking down a dark alley and your intuition is screaming at you and
Mm-hmm.
it's saying be careful or it's saying turn left instead of right or look this way, like just that very basic gut instinct,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't listen
Mm-hmm.
and something happens, you'll be kicking yourself later on.
Yeah.
So this is what I mean, that your fullest potential
Mm-hmm.
is when all of these parts of you are equally acknowledged and
Yeah.
they equally take part in your life
Mm-hmm.
every day,
Yeah.
right? So you work. So whenever something happens, right? So for example, you and I are having this conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I can then, right now in this moment, ask myself, within myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can ask myself, what are my thoughts about this conversation? How do I feel? What are my emotions and my feelings about this conversation? How is my body? Am I comfortable sitting down?
Mm-hmm.
What is the energy exchange? How are we connected? How are we connecting?
Mm-hmm.
What's the flow of this conversation? So, all of these things contribute to make this a really beautiful experience.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was just focusing on my mind and I had nervousness and pain and my insecurity was talking, then
Mm-hmm.
I probably wouldn't be able to have, you know, this experience of a really beautiful conversation.
Right. Yeah.
I'd be too nervous. I'd be
Yeah.
too anxious.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you think that this kind of approach, a more holistic approach, is what is currently kind of lacking in healthcare?
Um, Short answer is yes.
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 Unfortunately, yes.
um, mm, I think I feel, I witness that there's been a lot of focuses on fear and
Mm-hmm.
fear, um, just fear. In Australia, we say fear mongering. I don't know if you're familiar with that term. It basically means that there's lot of fear narratives in
Mm-hmm.
society.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of fear triggered for people, but it doesn't help when our governments and our leaders are just so, uh, uh, basically just screaming, you know, fear narratives and fear sentences and fear,
Mm-hmm.
everything at the public. That really doesn't help. So when the primary um, uh, emotion
Mm-hmm.
that presents is fear, then fear energy has a very low vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And so the ripple effect of being focused on fear narratives, fear sentences, fear platforms, fear anything,
Mm-hmm.
is that it decreases well-being because our body goes into survival mode,
Mm-hmm.
goes into stress mode. It activates the adrenal system. The central nervous system fires more. It sends messages to the brain that basically translate to danger, danger, danger. We create way too much cortisol, which is the stress chemical in
Mm-hmm.
the body. Our organs begin to shut down, our immunity system begins to shut down, we start to get sicker. So it all of like the ripple effect, just physiologically,
Mm-hmm.
just on the body, just very simply the way we are built,
Mm-hmm.
is enormous. But
Yeah.
that's just one thing. What about the mental health?
Yeah.
What about the emotional health? What about, the fear of, then start, and, there's literally millions of people in the world now that have post-traumatic stress disorder
Mm-hmm.
to some extent as a result of being anxious to go out on the street
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and breathe air.
Yeah.
And anyway, I don't want to sound like I'm preaching, but just and it's not even about anything. Just when there's so much fear out there,
Yeah.
it has a massive effect on our well-being.
Mm-hmm.
Massive, on every level possible.
Yeah. And I think
Massive.
we're
It's
just
like,
starting to realize the effect that it's slowly coming. Because I hear, like on our news, kids are more depressed and they're doing worse at school and their social lives are lacking. And that's kids. That's like the next generations that are coming. But also many
yeah.
adults, still people are sick more and they're scared to go out more. Their social lives are struggling, mentally, they're struggling. So I think for many years to come, there's a lot of struggle, I'm afraid.
Yes, I know. I mean, yeah, I mean, I was very, very, very busy over those 2 years when, you know, our government here in Australia was so focused on the lockdown,
Hmm.
and they didn't really care about people's mental health and
Hmm.
well-being. So people like me were very, very, very busy trying to help and support as much as we possibly could.
Yeah. And I think the healing, of course, it starts within, with yourself, and with the awareness that you need to heal and need
Mm.
to calm your mind and maybe even get therapy or whatever there is out there for you. But
Mhm.
every healing starts with a sense of awareness that you need to heal. And
Yes. yeah, that something is not quite right. And then uh, can I tell you one of the things that COVID taught us, which I think is really, it's one of the good things that's come out of all of this in my personal observation, is that people are less likely to hesitate to ask for help.
Mm,
Because of everything that's happened, people ask for help better, more,
yeah, I think
which I
it
think
also
is
had to do with this.
wonderful.
Yeah, with like the scope of, because everyone, literally everyone in this world was dealing with this. It's not just
Mm.
one city, one country, even, or literally the whole world was dealing with this situation. So because of that, I think it's easier to acknowledge that and acknowledge that, yeah, we sort of went through all this together. You can talk about it together. So it's also like there was collective pain, but I think there will also be collective healing in that.
Yes, beautiful. Yes, very nicely said. I agree. Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's important for all of us to, support each other in
Mm,
this way through podcasts and through all of this work that we are doing. And the other thing that's really beautiful that's come out of COVID, I think people feel more of a sense of purpose. I
mm,
know there are many that feel really lost, but there
mm.
are many that feel a greater sense of purpose.
Yeah,
So they're less likely to compromise who
yeah.
they are and more likely to step into their purpose, their power.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think because so much of what we used to take for granted was like stripped away, just the normal
Mm.
social life, going outside, having fun with friends, going to the theater or shows, when all of those things that you love and that give you joy, that a lot of those things were stripped away from you. You had really had to focus on yourself and like, okay, what is it that I actually want?
Mm. Yes. Yeah. It provided, I mean, in many ways, a great opportunity for us to bring our energy back into ourselves, into our homes,
Mhm.
and just focus on what was right there, present.
Exactly. Yeah, we were practically forced to, well, not just be inside our home, but also look inside ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
hope that's
definitely.
the,
Definitely.
the start of more healing and more growth that's going to happen. At least that's definitely what I hope for.
Mhm. I do too. I mean, in my world,
Hmm.
with, the kind of reality that I choose to create, everyone around me is actively participating in their own joy, in their own purpose,
Hmm.
in having a meaningful life rather than just, like a zombie one day after the
Hmm.
other, one day after the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, people in my world, um, people live, my family, my son, myself, my friends live with more purpose, with more joy, with more, you know, that
Hmm.
doesn't mean that, that things don't get ugly every once in
Hmm.
a while, because
Yeah.
it's life, that's okay.
Yeah.
But essentially, the bottom line is to live to your best and fullest potential every
Hmm.
day.
Yeah. And what would you advise someone who is just at the start of that spiritual journey?
I would say two things. The first one, the road ahead is difficult, but keep going.
Hmm.
This because it's really worth it. It's
Hmm.
really worth finding your true self again
Hmm. Oh
because
yeah.
we are born as our truest self and
Hmm.
then we sort of lose it. So the way back to yourself is not easy. Allow for for things that are not meant for you to fall away. It's hard, but keep going. The second thing, it's so amazing on the other side. Don't give up.
Exactly.
So amazing. So amazing.
Hallelujah. No,
It's
I'm kidding.
worth. Oh, why not? Hallelujah.
And do you have like a favorite way of self-care?
Oh, things that I love. I love creative. I'm really visual, so I love creative things. I often, any housework I have to do, I dance around the house while I do it.
Awesome.
So I love movies, theater. I get up in the morning and I look in my wardrobe. My wardrobe is divided into colors. And so I get up in the morning, I look in my wardrobe, and I always wear whatever I'm most drawn to. So I use kind of principles of color therapy.
Mhm.
My home completely represents who I am. I have a mandala there on on my wall, and I have crystals, and I have Buddhas, and candles. I live what I say.
Mhm.
I don't preach one thing and then do something else.
Mhm.
I love the water. I have a really good relationship with myself. I know myself really well. And so I just listen
Mhm.
and then I do.
Mhm.
I listen to this guidance and then I take action based on this.
Mhm. And my final question is also always the same one. When are you at your happiest?
Right now, in the present moment. There is no other moment.
Brilliant. I love it.
right now with you, my darling, the happiest. It's beautiful. I'm really grateful that I'm here.
Thank you so much. It was such a joy to talk to you. Thank you so much. I loved it.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I really enjoyed it as well. Thank you.